surprise! You get a midday training from me. Oh gosh, I'm just realizing that there's a lot of mess in my office behind me, so sorry about that. Anyway, you get a surprise midday training because I had a little change in my coaching schedule today, and so yeah, I've got a few minutes. So I just wanted to jump on here and talk to you guys about a couple of things. So yeah, what I want to talk about today is the heart sync patient. Okay, so this came up in a coaching session that I had with one of my clients earlier this week. And I realized that everybody in primary care needs to hear this. And I think there's probably also lots of other areas of medicine, probably most, to be honest, where this is very applicable. So here I am to give you a little training. Okay, so here we go. So we all know this idea of the heart sync patient, and basically the original term was coined, I think, back in 1988 or something like that. And the idea is that this is a patient where you get this feeling in the pit of your stomach when you see them come up on your list or in your messages. And this is often applied to patients who have complex medical histories or are coming in with multiple medical problems, or they have problematic behaviors. So psych would talk a lot about the reason why we tend to struggle with these kind of patients is because of transference and countertransference. And so basically the idea of transference is that we basically what happens is the patient transfers or applies their feelings, their desires, their expectations onto their physician. And then countertransference is where the physician would be transferring their emotions to the patient. And so, hi Lynn, hi Sonia. So yeah, so basically the idea is that there's this perceived emotional transfer that's happening between the physician and the patient, and that is affecting the consultation. And so essentially what happens is that this creates the idea that the patient is responsible for our emotions and that we are responsible for the patient's emotions. And this is very, very prevalent in medicine, that we believe that we're responsible for our patient's emotions. And the most of the time, the way this applies is that we want to help them, we want them to feel good, we want them to leave our office with a certain kind of love it, Sonia, with a certain kind of feeling, right? And so a lot of times the reason why this shows up as a problem with our heart sync patients is that we leave the consultation feeling like, oh, I did nothing to help that patient, and we have all these negative feelings about the patient, right? And so I want you to think about a heart sync patient that you've had an encounter with in the past. And it actually would be awesome if, when you have a moment, you can get out a piece of paper, and you can actually write down all of your thoughts. This is especially useful after you have an encounter with one of these patients, but get out a piece of paper, write down all your thoughts, and hi Andrea, and basically write down exactly what comes up. It can be about the patient, it can be about you, like you really just want to unedited, unfiltered, don't judge your mind, like just write it all down, okay? And then I want you to go a step further, and I want you to write down all the emotions that you can think of that you're experiencing, okay? And if you're struggling with what I'm going to go on to share next in this little training, you can certainly send your, I call this a thought download, where you write out everything that you're thinking. You can certainly send that to me, and I'm happy to take a look at it and ask you a couple of questions so that you can dig a little bit deeper if you're not sure how to get there, okay? Because that certainly is something that I help people to do all the time in coaching. So, okay, so the next thing I want you to do after you've done this, right, you've just unedited, is I want you to then go and look at what is going on in your mind. And so what you're probably going to find is that you think that the patient is causing or creating emotions for you. So earlier this week, which prompted me to do this training, is that I dug into this with one of my clients a little bit, and she was really, really clinging to the idea that a certain type of patients for her just created more misery for her than anybody else. And so I asked her tell me about a specific patient that this situation happens for you. And so she went on for a while, and as she was talking to me, I could tell that she was clinging to this belief that this patient treated her differently than she treated any other doctor and anyone else, that this patient just really wanted to get under her skin, and she couldn't figure out why the patient still wanted to be her patient when this patient appeared to hate her so much. So we dug and we dug and we dug, and we finally got to this belief that was behind it all, which is that when I'm with this patient, I don't believe that I'm a good doctor, right? And when she was with this patient, she was having these kind of thoughts, and what that was creating for her was anger. And so she was becoming short. She was leaving the room because she literally felt like she had to sit on her hands so she didn't slap the patient. She felt like she couldn't actually deal with the medical problems that the patient was coming in with. She was all in her head, right? It was just playing out this story over and over and over again of things that made her feel frustrated about the patient questioning her authority, and why the patient wanted to keep coming back to see her, and why she treated her so much differently, and why she particularly was saying things just to bother her. And so in effect, what the result was that she was creating for herself was that she was being a crappy doctor when she was with this patient. So she was almost proving it true that she was exactly the doctor that she didn't want to be, and what she was fighting against that she thought that this patient believed about her. And so that was like a huge breakthrough for her, just to recognize exactly what that was creating. And then we dug a little bit deeper into the past, and I said, well, what if it's possible that this patient just treats you the same way as she treats everybody else, and this is just her, right? And to her, that maybe this is her way of being the kindest she ever is with somebody, right? Maybe this is her way of showing affection or trust, right? Is that she's vulnerable in the way she interacts with you. And then the interesting thing is that my client was able to say that when she first started seeing this patient, the dynamic wasn't like this at all, right? And so, she thought about it for a bit, and she said, well, I'm not sure that she really changed. And I was like, ding, 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 ding. That's it, spot on, right? We change. We change because we have a new set of thoughts, and that's what creates our feelings and our actions and our results, right? And so the thing about it is that as long as we hold on to the idea that somebody else is responsible for our emotions, or that we're responsible for somebody else's emotions, we miss the opportunity to do really the only work we can do on ourselves that's actually going to improve the situation, and that is managing our thoughts about the patient. And so because this is the only thing that creates feelings for us, as much as we might cling to and hang on to the idea that a circumstance external to us creates this, it's always our thought about that creates our feelings. And so let me just pause and say this again, because really truly most of us don't understand this, but the freedom lies in when we take responsibility for our own feelings and realize that it's our own thoughts that are creating them, and that is what that's creating our actions and our results. Now, many of us think that those thoughts are automatic and we can't control them. And the point really isn't at first to control the thoughts. The point is actually just to recognize them, right? And to recognize what they're creating for us in our life. Because the more we recognize them, the more we're on to our brain and what our brain does, that's when we really start to be able to make changes, okay? We all have neuroplasticity. We all are able to retrain our brains to think a different way. However, it doesn't happen overnight. And if you go directly from thinking this to thinking that so that it can be sunshine and rainbows, it doesn't really work, right? Like it's just replacing. You miss the opportunity to do all the learning that takes place in between, right? When we understand the way our thoughts are creating our feelings and our actions and our results. So I actually don't do this training with the purpose of telling you that you just need to think differently, okay? That's not the point. So the point is to show you what result it's creating for you, right? And And the reason why this is important is that it's been studied that we have cognitive biases, right? And that is what makes us most likely to make an error in medicine. So when we're in the state of mind where we're all inside our head and we're questioning ourselves, we don't make the best medical decisions. We often will look back and say, why did I order that test? Why did I do that? We might assume things. We might not listen to the patient as well. And all of those things really put us at risk of making errors in medicine. And they're things that have been identified to be reasons why we make mistakes in medicine. And so I think that if we can, instead of, most of the usual teaching on dealing with heart sync patients focuses, on stuff like our body language and, getting to the patient's agenda and really telling them, like, this is how much time we're going to spend together today, and, focusing on what's the highest priority item on your list. And all of these things are definitely helpful, right? They're helpful in terms of setting expectations for the patient, which is important, right? It's important for us to be clear on what we can and can't do. But the thing is that if we don't address this underlying piece, right, the underlying piece of what's happening inside our brains when we're seeing these patients, if all our energy is focused on following an agenda for the visit, we still put ourselves at risk of these medical errors, okay, and of missing something. And we experience emotion that we really don't need to necessarily experience. We experience the heart sink all the same, okay? So what I'm teaching is something different, right? What I'm teaching is that I want you to take note, start taking note of where you are, right? Where you are when you're with these patients. And I want you, oh my gosh, that was a pigeon flying into the window of my office. This happens way too much this time of the year. But what I find really helpful is if you can go and you can look at some interactions that you have with patients that you leave, like the opposite of your heart sync patient, right? The patients that you love to see because you really come out of that consultation with feelings that you helped the patient, with beliefs that you helped the patient, right? Positive thoughts about your ability as a physician. And that creates positive emotion for you, right? That creates confidence. That creates joy. That creates the fulfillment that we get from medicine, right? And then take a look at, how do I act when I'm with those patients, right? What result does that create for me, right? It creates our belief in ourselves as a physician, and it creates that confidence that we can manage these clinical interactions, right? We can actually do something to help our patients. And so think about what you're thinking in those circumstances, right? Think about what you think about those kind of patients, because those are your brain's language, right? So if we can hack into this and we can apply that, we can say, is it possible that I could think that I could manage my heart sync patient just the same as I manage my most beloved patient? Okay, is it possible that I could have the same thoughts when I'm in that room, right? Is it possible that I could believe that I am a good physician when I'm with both of these patients, okay? And as you start to test out that hypothesis, you'll notice that if you think a little bit of that thought, in addition to a bunch of the maybe negative thoughts that you have about that heart sync patient, right? You'll notice an emotional shift within yourself. And eventually what's going to happen is you're going to form a new neural pathway. And instead of going in and expecting that everything that your patient does is going to create a certain emotion for you and make you feel negative, instead you're gonna go into the encounter, and you are going to be thinking about how you are the one who creates those emotions for yourselves, okay? And that is a game changer. It really is a game changer. So it's actually is the route to having no more heart sync patients, and believe it or not, it is possible. So I have two quick asks for anybody who's watching this video today. I'm going to be jumping on and doing more and more of these kind of trainings in here, and so I would really love, I'm going to put up an engagement thread in this Facebook group shortly after this, and I would really love it if you would jump on there and you would write about anything that you would like to see change in your work or in your life. And I will do some trainings based in my training as a coach on those topics over the next little while. I have lots of things that I could speak about, but I would really love to know what matters to you guys and what you would find helpful. So I'd be happy to focus my training on those. And the other thing I would love for you guys to do is, if you have one female physician friend who you think might benefit from something in this group or something that's coming up in this group, then please add them to the group. That would be great. Okay, you guys take care and enjoy the rest of your Friday.